Class is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our very first Pennsylvania Broker Roundtable on key tips for staying in compliance, hosted by our Pennsylvania broker, Dan McIntosh. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that by referring an agent to Allison James, you can earn a monthly or yearly residual income. For the first 3 agents you refer over, you will receive a 10% override. When you refer 4 to 20 agents, you receive 15%. And when you refer more than 20, you receive 20%. Now, this is 10, 15, and 20% of what? Well, that's where our 3 plans come into play. And for all of today's examples, I'm just going to use the 10% override. So first we have Plan A. Plan A is $3,950 for the entire year. On this plan, agents keep 100% of their commission. Therefore, if you refer an agent and they join us on Plan A, you will receive $395 per year. Next, we have our Plan B. Plan B is $395 per month. On this plan, agents also keep 100% of their commission. If you refer an agent who joins us on Plan B, you will receive $39.50 per month. Now, lastly, we have our Plan C. Plan C is $35 a month. If the agent you refer joins on Plan C, you receive $3.50 a month. Now, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but there's more with this plan. With Plan C, agents pay a $360 transaction fee. And for each transaction they close, you receive 10% of that transaction fee as well. So let's say they close a transaction every month. You're now earning an extra $36 per month plus the $350, which now brings your grand total to $39.50 a month. This is the same monthly income as referring an agent who joins on Plan B. If you need marketing materials to refer other agents to Allison James, please go to the Allison James University, click on the Referrals tab down at the bottom. From there, you will find marketing materials with more information on Allison James that you can share with other agents. If you have any questions about referring agents to Allison James, please email us at support@ajicorporate.com. Now, I do want to remind you that throughout this webinar, please feel free to post any questions into your GoToWebinar control panel, or if you're joining us live on Facebook, you can post questions in the comment box there as well. So with that being said, I would now like to pass it over to our wonderful broker, Dan McIntosh. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Tori.
How are you today?
I'm very good. I'm looking forward to our first broker roundtable. Today, we're going to be talking about key tips for staying in compliance as it relates to advertising. And what I have, I'm going to present to our listeners and agents. I have an article put together by Brett Woodburn, Esquire, an attorney who writes for PAR, which stands for the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and also for NAR. Advertising, I think a lot of us as agents probably take this for granted, but in truth, it's one of the highest rated violations next to escrow violations that agents commit. And I think it's because most of us really don't know what we're allowed to do. So what I'm going to do is go over some of the key points to help you stay on track. Of all the calls to the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors hotlines, questions about advertising are probably second in frequency only to questions about handling escrow funds, as I mentioned. Now is probably a good time as any to do and review what is and is not permitted when realtors advertise. Most of you are aware that the Pennsylvania Real Estate Commission is the entity that imposes fines or more serious punishment on licensees who break advertising laws. It is important to understand that these are generally some of the easiest infractions to prosecute, obviously, because the advertisement in question is right in front of the commission. Before we discuss internet advertising and team advertising, let's talk about what constitutes an advertisement. Certainly circulars, flyers, newspaper advertisements, and yard signs are advertisements, but so are business cards and websites. Directional signs may also be advertisements when they contain anything other than directions, i.e. logos and phone numbers. The first rule is that a licensee must have the seller or landlord's permission. Now that may seem obvious and duh, but obviously not all agents are doing that because Agents are being fined and being brought up on these issues. While there's no legal requirement to get this authorization in writing, it is always best to document these decisions. If you use a PAR listing agreement, the seller and landlord's authorization is included. You may also want or need to get permission from the property owner when you place directional signs on land owned by anyone other than your client. Complaints of this nature likely fall outside the province of the Real Estate Commission. However, placing signs on private property may be classified as trespassing, or the owner may just yank out your expensive signs and throw them away. Do you need to have the permission of the title owner before advertising? The safe and most obvious answer is yes. Now here's the point that I really want to make and drive home, because this is probably the biggest, the strongest, and most abused infraction. The second rule is that the employing broker's name and telephone number must be on all advertisements and must be given equal prominence to the salesperson's name and telephone number. Let me repeat that. The second rule is that the employing broker's name and telephone number must be on all advertisements and must be given equal prominence to the salesperson's name and telephone number. There are no requirements or regulations that limit who can be listed first or where the broker's name and number have to be. An agent can even include his direct dial or cell number. The only requirement is that the broker's name and number be equally as prominent as the agent's. A good synonym for prominent is conspicuous. In other words, the broker's name and number must be as noticeable as the agent's name and number. Prominence can be achieved through font size, color, graphics, and/or other visual techniques. A good rule of thumb is to use the main office number as the broker's number. In other words, the number you'd be given if you called directory assistance. This is key. I've been involved in a number of these issues, and I know a number of agents that had their wrists slapped for this. Typically, agents want to make and promote themselves, which is fine, but the office and the broker's number must be of equal prominence. Good rule of thumb is make them have your printer either make the broker and office number slightly larger or make them exactly equal. And the person handling and printing your cards will know exactly what to do. In all of your internet advertising or your flyers or any other type of adverts, the same thing. You have to have equal prominence. A number, I mean, in the last office I was with, the Real Estate Commission would hand out the fines. You get your quarterly newsletter, and 95% of the infractions were advertising infractions. So I want to encourage you to stay on top of that. You can also have, believe it or not, in Pennsylvania, with your continuing education, many of you should have had your code of ethics review in the past renewal for 2018. NAR Code of Ethics Article 12 is another good source and reference when dealing with advertising for your client. So I'd suggest reviewing NAR Code of Ethics Article 12. With that being said, I'm going to have a few comments that a few other agents mentioned about the article I just read by Brett. And the big issue, one, an agent mentioned the biggest problem is that there are agents that continually violate these rules, and the enforcement against them is pathetic. The commission makes you fill out a very long form. It could take years before anything is done, and the fines are minimal. Now, let me tell you, this article was written a few years ago. I can tell you from experience that is no longer the case. The commission is looking at these, and they're being more proactive with these. So I want to stress again, this is something that's very easy to fix and or correct. Review your current advertising. Just make sure that the broker office name and number are more prominent than your name and number. And again, you can use NAR's guideline, Article 12, and then also the Pennsylvania State Commission. You can go to www.dos.pa.gov gov/estate, and get information on advertising direct from the commission. And again, it reinforces what I already told you regarding the prominence issue. So one, you want to get authorization in writing, and two, you just want to make sure that the broker name and office are more prominent in your advertising. And that concludes my portion of the roundtable. I'd be more than happy to take any questions or comments, if there are any.
Let me check Facebook. It doesn't look like we have any questions right now, but you guys know if you did want to reach out to Dan, if you come up with any questions after this is presented, then you can always email him at pabroker@ajicorporate.com. So thank you everyone for joining us for our very first Pennsylvania Broker Roundtable. And of course, a special thank you to our wonderful broker, Dan McIntosh, for putting together a great topic and a presentation. We will see you all next month for another Pennsylvania Broker Roundtable. Thanks again for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.